Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Sports Media. I'm Ryan Lickler, and I'm back with my co-host Brady Penn. We were on the Blitz angle tonight. Brady's on the road, and Brady, that might have been the worst football game I've watched all year. We had the CFL New Orleans Saints versus the Green Bay Packers, the third team in the NFC North. Brady, what are your initial takeaways from the Packers' dominant win over the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I think the Packers are a really sneaky NFC team. I've talked about this a bunch throughout the season, and I know we both had them as the preseason NFC winners. We had them both in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, and we will see if that comes true or not. But they are a dangerous team. They are a good defense. They have Jordan Love, who has been the best quarterback EPA wise since Week 10 in the NFL. Josh Jacobs toting the rock, and a slew of weapons. Most importantly, Matt LaFleur calling the plays. And the Saints, I mean, there's not really much to say about the Saints. They're moving on to draft season, but Spencer Rattler, I will say, is not faring well in his first year kind of auditions that he has had for the New Orleans Saints. And I know the roster around him is depleted and bad. No Shaheed, Olave has been out most of the year, and there's just not a whole lot of positive going on in New Orleans. And if there was ever a chance of Darren Rizzi becoming the new head coach, I think those are pretty much dead after these last couple
Yep.
of weeks. And yeah, I just there's nowhere to go but up for the Saints right now, and for the Packers, I think they might have a lot of football left ahead of them this season.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. You mentioned Spencer Rattler. I mean, I think a great way to sum up his play so far this season. He makes a crazy jump throw, and we're like, okay, Spencer Rattler has some talent there. Then the next play makes a horrible decision, throws an interception in double coverage. And that's kind of been Spencer Rattler since he got to college. He has a highlight play here or there, and then he just breaks down and makes a crazy play where you're just sitting there like, how can this guy be a power five? How can this guy be an NFL quarterback based on this decision making? We got Trey in the chat saying I ruined Zach's parlay. I just rode one of the plays. Unfortunately, the Jordan Love alternate line did not hit at 200 passing yards.
Mm.
It got me too. It got me too. But all I'll say in this matchup, I mean, this team runs through Josh Jacobs. When Josh Jacobs is going, the Packers are going, and they got Josh Jacobs working early. You know, he even wasn't even a full. He didn't play the full game in this one, and they still were able to dominate because they set the tone early. They ran the ball, play action off of that. They got Dontavian Wicks a little bit involved on that first drive, which worked out well for them. And then defensively, Edgerton Cooper, man, this is a fine for them. I mean, this guy is an absolute monster. Defensively, I do think the secondary is a little concerning for me in the postseason. But I mean, that run defense is legit, Brady, and I think that's what gives
Well,
them a sneaky chance in the postseason.
I think once Jair is healthy, it just does a
It
lot
does.
for
What
them.
just Jair being out definitely is hurt, but we'll see what version of Jair we get. He hasn't been the same player when he's been on the field this season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But last week I was kind of leaning Rams having better odds over the Packers. I think you can make an argument for the Packers having the second best odds um, in the NFC. I know that the Eagles look really strong despite what happened yesterday. We'll see what happens when Jalen Hurts is back in there. But I think that the Packers and the Eagles, as evidenced in Week 1, granted it was a long time ago, I think they're on pretty level footing. I think these are two teams that are on similar levels, closer levels than people want to admit. Lions are still the clear favorite to me in the NFC, but I think the Green Bay Packers, they're frisky, man. They're dangerous.
They're a very frisky team. I think a lot of teams in the NFC are starting to reach that frisky meter for me. I think there's in the NFC, I feel like each team has their specific strength. And with the Packers, I mean, Matt LaFleur is as good as anybody in the NFL at scheming open plays. And I trust him as much as any offensive coordinator or head coach in the NFL to scheme up plays in the postseason besides Andy Reid. I think he is that guy in the NFC over Ben Johnson, over Kevin O'Connell, like has been there and done that in the postseason. I know he doesn't have a ring, but he's been to an NFC championship. He's won some playoff games. I do want to see on the offensive side of the ball, I want to see what happens if Jordan Love gets let loose. We've seen this game plan now where Jordan Love has honestly had that positive game script, almost like Jared Goff has this entire season. It's been a positive game script a lot of
It's
the
like an
time.
upper tier game manager.
Yeah, he's an elite. Let's just say he's an elite talent game manager right now for the Packers, and it's working really well. Now in a close game, what are they going to be able to do? We saw against Detroit, it was a disaster in the first half. They didn't run the ball. The passing game never got going in the second half when they were behind. Jordan Love started cooking a little bit, but it was too late.
You want to know a thought that I have here? I'm not sure that you'll like this, and I'm not saying they're the same player, same level of player. I think that Love and your boy Mahomes are playing similar styles of football this season, where they're very efficient, 25 to 27 attempts per game, with a strong running game and a good defense that keeps the other offense off of the field. Very good, efficient underneath quarterback play. That's I see similarities between the two, especially with what both of them can do outside of the pocket too.
I think it's similar in the fact that they're like their talent and their I want to say like archetype, like they're both gunslinger type quarterbacks, but they're playing within an offense
They're
where
they're simplifying it,
yeah,
yes.
they're simplifying what they need to do, and then when a play breaks down on third down, they have that ability to be that special player and go make a play. And I think that's what's so intriguing to me about Jordan Love as a quarterback is he's such a smart player. And then when you take him out of that and it's third down, he can go be that really talented player, that gunslinger that you need. And he is a little mix of Favre and Rodgers in that sense, where he has the Rodgers where he's more that efficient player, and then that Favre where he's that gunslinger when you need him. I'm not going to say he's going to be anywhere near those guys all time. He still has a long ways to go, but he does have those tendencies of both those players and kind of their good attributes in that case. I do want to talk about the Saints in this regard. Brady, they have such an old roster. They have so many veterans on this team. I don't know as an organization with the amount of money they have tied up and dead cap already with all these extensions they've given to these players, how they can cut them this offseason, rebuild this roster, and retool it. I know they're going to have a upper echelon draft pick, but Derek Carr's tied up to a lot of money. Alvin Kamara just signed an extension. They had to eat some Marshawn Lattimore money to get him traded. Tyrann Matthew still has money left. Like these are expensive players. Ryan Ramczyk, I know, is on a massive contract as well. These are players on big deals that they can't move off on, and they already have dead cap waiting. What is the Saints' plan this offseason to not look like a CFL team?
I have no clue. I really don't have an answer for you. Like you said, regardless of what they do, a lot of cap casualties. There's no none of the high impact positions are really one that they're likely going to pick. Like they're not picking a quarterback. They may pick an edge, maybe an Abdul Carter type, maybe an offensive lineman, but it's unclear. That's the word that I would use for the Saints. It's just very murky, very unclear. And on top of that, you have a front office that is extremely anti tank and will never just admit that the season coming up is a lost cause.
And that's part of the thing. Like I understand teams that and this is my gripe with the Steelers coming into the season is they never tear it down. The Steelers roster, I'm like, this is another 7 to 10 win season for the Steelers, and they're going to be stuck in mediocrity. Now, Russell Wilson has played better than I think anybody expected this season.
Yeah.
Saints, they gambled on Derek Carr being better than he was in his last year in Las Vegas, but that hasn't happened in his time in New Orleans. They've been stuck in this mediocrity, which is 7 to 8 wins every year. They're not good enough to get an upper echelon pick. They can't go get an elite talent at quarterback, receiver, edge, or corner. That doesn't change their roster by any means. And I do think they're stuck in a way. If they don't hit on a draft pick between that 10 to 14 position, like this year, I think they'll, I don't know for sure what they're at right now. I want to say they're getting close to the top 10, they're right at the border of that top 10 spot. But if they don't nail a pick where it's going to be a super high impact player this year, they're going to be stuck with 5, 6 wins next year because Derek Carr is good enough to get them to 5 or 6 wins in a weak division. But I think the division is going to be improved next year. The Buccaneers will be more healthy. The Carolina Panthers will be better than they are this year. The Falcons, Michael Penix Jr. in year 2, who knows what we get from them? Like it is going to be a tougher division going forward, and the Saints are only going to be trending in the wrong direction. And if they don't get some high impact young talent, it's going to be a long rebuild. And I'm talking not just a 3 to 4 year rebuild. This is a 5 to 10 year rebuild if they don't start changing things fast, because the amount of cap money they have tied up in these veterans right now, it's tough, Brady. I mean, it was going to bite them in butt at some point. They went all in on a Super Bowl. They weren't able to do it. And now here we are in 2024 heading into 2025, and the Saints have no clear future to success.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely a tough road ahead for the Saints.
What do you think head coaching wise, a candidate that would be appealed by the situation or would be a good fit for them?
I've got some Saints fan friends, and they seem to be really wanting Aaron Glenn.
Oh boy. You know what? I could see it though. I could see an Aaron Glenn fit for the New
I feel
Orleans.
like the Saints always go for like a gritty kind of head coach, like with that kind of chip on their shoulder. And I mean, what better coaching tree is there to pull from if you're looking for that than the Dan Campbell?
I will say that, but we're both not very high on Eric Glenn as a coach long term. Who knows?
You know,
Maybe
I don't know about him as a head coach, but I do think as a DC, he's done a really good job maximizing talent on a roster that's not even top 12 in defensive talent in the NFL.
would I be interested to see if he's one of those guys that's more of a placeholder, if he's that gap of these aging veterans over the next 2 to 3 years getting off the
A
roster,
scapegoat and Antonio
scapegoat,
Peters.
scapegoat for that young offensive guy that comes in with the young talent here in 2027, 2028 for the Saints. Let's piggyback on the Packers here. They're third in the division, Brady. Obviously, Minnesota and Detroit will be battling out for the 1 seed, and Minnesota and Green Bay actually match up next week, which does have a lot of implications for the NFC North race, even if the Packers are out of it at this point. Are the Packers truly the third best team in this division?
I think they're the second best. I think they're better than Minnesota. They got caught slipping at home early on in the year. I believe it was week 4. They ended up losing what became a one-score game. There was a second half comeback, but it was Jordan Love's first game back off of injury, and we've seen how well he has played in December the last 2 years. And I truly think that the Green Bay Packers, top to bottom, are better than the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm not sure I fully trust Jordan Love in the playoffs, but if you ask me who I have to choose between Jordan Love and Sam Darnold, I'm still rolling with Jay Love.
I think I agree with you in that sense. It's tough for me right now. I think in this moment, I would take the Vikings based on the play that they're doing. But I think if we reseed everybody in the postseason, I would take the Packers in that point. The Vikings are one of the hottest teams in football right now. And this is going to be a real test for them. I know we keep talking about week in and week out. It's a test for the Minnesota Vikings as their schedule starts to get harder. This is it for them. You got 2 division opponents. The 1 seed's on the line. Can they live up to the hype? Can Jettas find a way to just take over a ball game? Can Sam Darnold be good enough to go get a win for the Vikings? Can they win a shootout where Sam Darnold has to throw 400 yards? We're about to find out all the answers to the questions, and I guarantee you, Brady, before the postseason, we're going to know what we're going to get out of the Vikings in the postseason in these next 2 weeks. These are playoff games for the Vikings, and I fully expect if we get a Vikings dud here in these 2 weeks where they just don't perform very well, I might pick them to lose in the first round. I might have a sneaky upset in the first round where Minnesota might get clipped by Tampa Bay or Atlanta, or potentially a winner of the NFC West. It'll be interesting to see, but I'm very intrigued to see how the Vikings play this week.
100%. I'm with you.
Yeah, all in all, guys, really short show for you guys tonight. We had a really brutal game. We definitely are going to have a lot more content coming out for you guys to check out on Christmas Eve today and then Christmas morning for you guys. A preview of all those games coming up. If you enjoy Blitz Sports Media content, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more content, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Yes, sir.